Yeah, I'll swear you in if you can get your raise right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, go ahead and be seated over here if you would, please.
Here, speak up.
Go ahead, Mr. Brown.
Thank you. Agent Riessen, can you please state your name for the record?
My name is Derek Riessen,
How do you spell your last name?
Riessen.
And how are you employed?
I'm employed with the Iowa Division of Criminal Investigation through the state of Iowa
And how long have you been a DCI agent?
since 1995.
And what's your educational background?
I have a bachelor's degree from Mount Mercy College in Cedar Rapids. No advanced degrees, bachelor's.
And other than DCI, do you have other law enforcement experience?
No, I've been with the Department of Public Safety, the state of Iowa, my entire career.
What's been the history of your assignments then with the Department of Public Safety?
In 1995 to 1998, I served in our.
Do you know what county she's in, Anna? And do you know where you need to look? Is this Courtney Clean? Has she got a case, like a trial coming up? Because if she has, you know where to look, don't you? In the first place, I always go. As the gavel drops. And I didn't realise it, but thanks for checking the prosecutor step aside. I don't know. I've heard of the name, but I haven't following it. Do you know what county she's being tried in? Because the you go to that county's clerk of courts and try and access their criminal records. If you can't get them, Broward County. Okay, that's Judge Boyd, isn't it? No. Who's in Broward County? I would go to the gavel first, only hope, and just type in her name as a search, and it'll come up with whatever they've got. If she's got a trial coming up, they'll generally have everything like media releases, documents, YouTube videos, the whole lot. But yeah, Toxic Orchid is the owner of As the Gavel Drops. She's not a mod. She owns it. It's hers. So I found out.
Our gaming division, so gaming enforcement officer. In 1998, I was promoted to an agent within the gaming division. I served there until 2007, where I joined our division of intelligence. And in 2010, I joined the major crime unit within the Division of Criminal Investigation.
Okay, describe that for us, if you would, Agent Riessen, whenever you say that you're involved in the major crime unit.
The other good thing that As the Gavel Drops does, they do like an overview with her name. So when you click on it, it's got the date of the offence, the name of the defendant, the case number, the victims' names, the court, the county, and with all that information, you can then go, if they haven't got what you want, you can actually hone right in and look for those elsewhere if you need them. It's very handy. Like the amount of information they've got. Yes, she does. She's lovely. Lovely. Oh, excuse me.
Yeah, how is that divided among the state?
Within the state of Iowa, we have 4 zones of offices through the major crime unit. Northeast, southeast, central Iowa, and then western Iowa is a rough breakdown. In this area, we're considered zone 4 as the office I'm out of.
And where is that located generally within southeast Iowa?
Our zone is comprised from Jackson County to the north, to the Missouri border, and to the west over Poweshiek, Tama County area.
And there are field offices within that zone.
There are Mount Pleasant, Stockton, and Cedar Rapids.
And which field office are you associated with?
Stockton.
What are the duties of the Major Crime Unit?
We are an assist-based agency, so when jurisdictions need our assistance with crimes or situations that they're not used to or haven't looked at in a long time, we will come in and assist them in any way they need.
Typically, do agents assigned to the Major Crime Unit work death cases,
Yes,
including homicides?
correct.
And prior to this particular case, have you worked other death cases?
Yes,
Do you know how many you've worked in the course of your career?
more than 100, possibly a few hundred.
All right, Agent Riessen, I want to direct your attention back to July of 2018. Were you assigned to work the investigation into the disappearance of Mollie Tibbetts?
I was.
And were you the case agent?
No, I was not.
Okay, tell the jury what a case agent is.
A case agent is someone who kind of, if you want to think of it as a case manager, who helps take in information, assign leads, someone to be kind of the repository for all the information that comes in an effort so things stay streamlined and the things that need to be addressed are addressed.
Okay. Have you served as a case agent in other death investigations?
I have.
Who was the case agent assigned to the disappearance of Mollie Tibbetts?
Agent Trent Villada.
And does he work in the Stockton office with you?
He does not. He's out of our Cedar Rapids office.
Specifically, what date did you become involved in this case?
July 26th.
And what was your role in the investigation on July 26th and after?
Initially, it was to come in and conduct interviews, neighborhood canvass, friends of Mollie Tibbetts. Anything that came up that was assigned is what I would do.
Okay. Who made those assignments to you?
Agent Villada, I'm sorry.
Generally speaking, whenever you were in Poweshiek County working on the Mollie Tibbetts case, where were you housed?
For the initial, we were in Brooklyn at their fire station is where we worked out of. And then later on in the investigation, we transferred down to the Poweshiek County Sheriff's Office, which is in Montezuma.
Okay. And during the course of your involvement in the investigation, did you have assistance from other law enforcement agencies,
Yes, we did.
both federal and state?
Federal, state, local, county, yes.
What assistance would you have had from the federal government?
Federal government, I recall them having evidence response teams to look at different areas, other agents to help with leads and run things out as well. So they provided anything that was needed.
All right. And then other local agencies would have assisted?
Correct. The Poweshiek County Sheriff's Office was very involved in the case.
Were there other than state agencies that were involved that provided law enforcement assistance?
Yes, there was.
Okay.
All right. Courtney Cleaney. 7th of the 3rd, the lead prosecutor steps down. Apparently, Court TV, she's even got the timestamp at 29:09 is when her attorney breaks down on cross-examination. Oh, that's Laurie Daybell. Status set for the 11th, which was yesterday, 9:30, status hearing. OnlyFans model accused of murdering allowed to question. So there's links to all the newspapers, court TVs. There's photos. Ooh, photos of graphic nature. Ooh. Spoiler. What? Oh. Oh. Oh, it's actual crime scene. Oh. She cut him in the face. Ooh, that's nasty. That's some nasty business. Yeah. Oh, it's the 11th for you today. It's the 12th for me. Sorry, it's the 11th for me yesterday. She oh man, I don't know if you can see that. Did he survive? Look at that. Oh. That's his face. She nasty. Yeah, and then at the top it has, oops, dickhead, open, come on. So the victim was Cristhian Bahena, yeah, him. How about I screenshot it, email it to myself, and bring it up. Okay.
As part of your assignment in this case, were you tasked with locating surveillance cameras within the city of Brooklyn?
Yes, I was.
What was the purpose of that task?
The purpose of the task was to find any surveillance or any camera viewer angle so that we could better establish a timeline for Mollie and her disappearance.
And did that take some time to go through everyone in Brooklyn?
Absolutely.
All right, even though it's a small town, right?
Yes,
Still a lot of houses and a lot of outbuildings to check for surveillance cameras. Would you agree?
I would agree.
All right. Were people generally cooperative?
Very.
All right. And did you and other investigators create a map with tags of the locations that you would have checked, as well as locations that you would have needed to check?
There was within our meeting room, or war room is what we call it. There was a large Google map style. It was just a large, bigger than a poster size, that was up on the wall, which encompassed the city of Brooklyn. And within that, there would be stickers on each residence as to if they've been spoken to, checked for cameras, if there needs to be follow-up, or it's been completed.
I'm going to show you one of those maps, which is State's Exhibit number 9. Do you see that?
I do.
Is that one of the maps that you're referring to?
Yes.
All right. And there are both, there's red flags that are on here as well as yellow flags, correct?
Correct.
Red flags indicate a place has been checked.
Correct.
Yellow flags would indicate you still needed to check that.
Need follow-up.
All right. If you can look closely at that.
Yes.
Prior to going out to Logan Collins's residence at 616 East Des Moines, there's a yellow flag that is near his house. Is that right?
That is correct.
So this map would have been utilized by law enforcement.
Correct.
And what would that indicate to you, looking at it in its present condition?
That would need follow-up.
All right. And is that one of the things that you did follow up on?
Correct.
Did you go, I'm sorry, I'll let you switch. Good. Did you and other officers, you indicated that you did follow up with the Logan Collins residence at 616 East Des Moines Street in Brooklyn?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So how many different occasions, if you know, did law enforcement go to the Logan Collins residence?
I'm not sure of an exact number. I know I personally was there at least twice. I know law enforcement had been there previously.
Okay. Was there another officer that assisted in collecting the surveillance cameras?
Well, on my 2 occasions when I went there, my initial travels to the Collins house, I was with Special Agent Matt George of the DCI. We went to that residence. Logan was not home at that time, so we got a number and left a message. When we went back to retrieve the actual DVR system, FBI agent Dave Warren was with me.
So let's back up just a bit.
Sure.
How did you reach out to Logan Collins at 616 East Des Moines Street?
Once we went there and Agent George and I viewed the area and saw the cameras on the exterior of the home, we wanted to make sure that we had those cameras since he wasn't at home, so we had the video. So I had called back to find out who the resident was of that residence and get a phone number to try and make contact. So called and left a message for Mr. Collins, which he returned.
Okay. Did you make arrangements to go to the Collins residence at 616 East Des Moines?
I did.
All right. Do you remember the date that you went there?
That was August 14th.
All right. What time of day would you have gone to his residence?
I believe he was getting off of work, so it would have been after 4:15, approximately 4:30, somewhere in there in the afternoon.
Where did you meet with Mr. Collins?
I met with Mr. Collins outside of his garage, and then he took me inside of his detached garage, which is where he housed the hardware, the DVR of that nature for the system.
All right. Did he also show you the locations of the cameras?
He did, but they were very visible. They weren't covert. They were the kind that are hardwired onto the outside of the home,
Okay.
Or the garage.
Would you characterize Mr. Collins as cooperative?
Very.
How long did you spend at his house on the evening of August 14th?
He assisted, well, he downloaded the cameras, so I watched him do that. So at the conclusion of that, I would guess half hour, 45 minutes.
Okay. Prior to him downloading the surveillance video for you, did you look at it on his system? Did you view it?
No, we just knew that we needed the video based on the locations of the cameras. So we provided a hard drive for him to download them onto.
Was he able to do that?
He was.
Any problems or issues in downloading the surveillance footage?
No.
Did you take it back to the fire department and view it?
Yes.
Did you do that right away?
Yes.
All right. On the evening of August 14th?
Correct.
All right.
All right. There you go, madam. Yep. That is all of the information that you need to find out what you need. So it's got her name, the victim's name, the incident date, the defendant, the charges, when her next hearings. Well, that was the motions hearing, the county, Miami-Dade she's in. And then it's got the link to that actual case search to click on, which you can't use this to do it because I've just copy and pasted it. But when you go into As the Gavel Drops, it will take you to that search. The case number, the date it was filed, when she was arrested, second degree with a weapon, enhancer, her parents. They're being charged as well. They're not showing up in Florida yet. The family of the victim have filed a civil suit against Cleany, but will not proceed until after the criminal trial. Cleany remains in jail without bond. There you go. How good are they? And that, I mean, most of that time, it took me to try and upload it, save it as a PDF, and then bring it back in and try and find it. But to actually go into As the Gravel Drops, I just put in her name and it brought up everything, a whole thread, and it's dated. So it goes chronologically from today backwards, and you can pick and choose, and it'll take you directly to that site, or that video, or that newspaper, or that article, or whatever it is that is pertaining to her. The parents charged with held evidence and not showing up in Florida, also apparently. That's Deborah Cleany. And Kim Cleany, is it? Deborah and Kim? So if you want to screenshot that, or if you want to, I don't know if I can, where can I put it? Oh, I can email it to you, Anna. Dickhead.
How long had you known, if you know, that the cameras and the footage on Logan Collins's residence needed to be checked?
That day, Agent George and I went out was the first time I had learned that there were cameras there that needed follow-up.
Okay. There was a yellow sticker on the map that we saw earlier.
Correct.
Is that why you went to that residence?
That's exactly right.
Okay. So after collecting the video, then describe for the jury what your process was in reviewing it.
When we returned back to the Brooklyn Fire Department, we divided the cameras since there was 4 angles. We had different people looking at different angles in hopes to see Mollie Tibbetts jogging once again to help solidify our timeline.
Okay.
And did you know
That may not have been updated. That's all. Mollie Tibbetts was charged with tampering with evidence because they found the victim's laptop. Okay. Fair enough.
general, what time frame you were looking for a jogger or any other evidence for that matter?
Based on the case information at that point, we had people in town who had seen her jogging, but the person who saw her last, according to our time.
It just makes so much more sense to go to one place to find all of it than jumping around between, searching on Google and, articles and newspapers and shit. It's everything is there. It's absolutely. The charges were dropped because they're going through checks protected by attorney-client privilege.
Timeline was Christina Stewart at approximately 7:45 p.m. So based on her accounts from where she would have seen Mollie at, we backed that up to account for the time it would take to jog there. So I would say from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. is the time frame we were looking at.
At the time, Agent Riessen,
And
did
to be
you?
honest, that's the only that's the only thing I ever had to do or knew about Discord for a long, long time.
Know that there was a black Chevy Malibu associated at all with Mollie Tibbetts?
No.
Did you review the footage?
Yes.
Was there another agent that was assisting you directly?
Numerous. I mean, like I said, we split them into. We had 4 different agents or off deputies looking at things.
Okay, Agent George is who I was referring to.
Yes.
So yeah, was he helping?
Yes.
All right.
Back in
I want you, if you could, at one point, tell us or describe, did another agent or Agent George notice what appeared to be a jogger?
He did. We didn't notice anything while reviewing them on August 14th. On August 15th, I was reviewing the cameras, specifically one area that was kind of hard to see. But after looking and being around the town of Brooklyn to get to 385th, there was really only 2 areas where you could access that road by pavement. So the areas the common areas that would have went right past Mr. Logan's house, East Des Moines Street, we didn't find her there. So on the 15th, I spent considerable time looking at the area of boundary and the end of East Des Moines, which is hard to see on the cameras. While I'm reviewing it, Agent George, he came up and he had asked me what I was looking at. As I'm reviewing the cameras, I show him what I'm looking for. I turned actually to say something to him and he said, "I think I saw something there." I thought he was kidding at first, but I went back on the cameras and then sure enough, we saw what looked to be like a jogger going through that frame.
It's from a distance, is that right?
It is.
All right. Now, let's back up just a bit. So you started reviewing the surveillance video on August the 14th, correct? You quit for the evening
Yes,
and then came back to it the next day on August the 15th.
correct.
Was that also back at the firehouse in Brooklyn?
Yes,
All right. And that's where this happened with Agent George that you just described to us. Is that right?
that is correct.
All right. And we'll look at that video here in just a moment. But did you go back then and look several times to see if you could notice anything at all that appeared to be a runner?
Yes. I looked
Okay.
at it numerous times. I can say it was a runner, has the appearance of a ponytail, but that was about it to me.
We're going to look at that video.
Where's the sheet?
Okay. Agent Riessen, I've got on the screen what is Exhibit 11. You can see that.
Yes,
The date and time stamp on this particular video is what?
July 18th, 2018 at 19:45 hours and 24 seconds, so 7:45 p.m. as according to the the timestamp on the tape. or video.
Did you take any steps to determine if the date and timestamp were accurate?
Yes, when I was at Mr. Collins' residence, I compared the time and date to my cell phone. The date was correct, but the system was 3 minutes slow comparing it to my cell phone.
Okay, comparing it to your cell phone, correct?
Correct.
So
Yes.
this 3 minutes, would that be then 7:45, 7:48?
Yes, my cell phone would say 7:48
Okay.
according to this.
So that's just in comparison to your phone, correct?
Correct.
All right. Now, this is difficult to see. Would you agree with me?
I would very much agree.
Okay, and if you look at my cursor, the what you and Agent George would have initially seen, would this have been the view you would have had?
Yes, that's Boundary Street down there at the end of East Des Moines. So the gray house you can see to the south, and then the white house is actually across the street of Boundary, so to the east of Boundary. So right along that white house is where you'll see a jogger.
And it goes by in a fraction of a second, is that right?
It does.
Okay, we're gonna play this, and then we have an enhanced version of that too, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. I'm gonna play the video at this time.
I didn't get popcorn.
Was that it?
That was it.
Oh, come on, sorry.
Let's play it again one more time.
You bastard, sorry.
That's what Agent George identified to you, is that correct?
That's correct. He said he saw something, and then that's when I brought the video back and then played it forward again.
All right. Let's look at State's Exhibit number 12. This is a photo, correct?
Yes.
The whoops. So we have labeled on this photo Exhibit 12, runner on boundary. Would you agree?
Yes.
And there's a black arrow pointing back to the back towards Boundary Street where my cursor is at. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Is that where the what appears to be a runner goes through?
Yes.
Obviously, looking at this,
Really?
we can't identify this
Between those
person
two buildings.
positively off of this video, correct?
That's correct.
All right. And this street that here on the cursor, is that, what street is that?
East Des Moines.
And then this street that runs this direction of the cursor towards the left side of the photo is what?
East Street.
Okay. Now, we enhanced this portion of the video. Have you seen that?
I have.
All right. I'm going to now play what's Exhibit 13, which is the enhanced video, okay?
Okay.
Wow. You picked that up?
We can see it a little bit clearer there. Is that correct?
Yes.
I'll play it again here in just a moment, but let's be clear. What appears to be someone running is in the area where my laser pointer is, near this gray house. Is that right?
Yes.
All right. Does the runner appear from the side of this gray house and then disappear behind the bush that is here to the left?
Yes.
All right. We're going to look at it one more time.
I believe the detective saw that. Wow.
Agent Riessen, based upon yours and other law enforcement's view of what you believe to be a runner, caused you then to do what with the remainder of this video, or this surveillance video that you've seized?
Essentially, what we decided to do was to start logging everything we saw on the video, vehicles, any pedestrians, anything in and around that area prior to 7:45 and also following 7:45 p.m. as shown on the time and date stamp.
Now, in doing that type of surveillance, generally describe for us did you see multiple other vehicles?
Yes.
Well, generally describe for us what it was that you observed in that effort in reviewing the video that you just described.
While reviewing it, what we did, like I said earlier, once again, we took this, and after we had located the runner, we once again parceled it out to different agents and deputies to review, and each created like a written log of just notes on what they had seen. So what was seen was, once again, cars, a person walking their dog, I recall, but most of it was vehicles.
All right. And in looking at that vehicle, collectively putting your heads together, did you notice what appeared to be a black Chevy Malibu?
We did.
Why was it that this particular car, out of all the others that you would have seen, drew yours and other law enforcement agents' attention?
The big thing for me was when those 4 individuals who were viewing tape gave me their logs, I created a spreadsheet just on Excel, and with time and date according to the timestamp. And after the runner went past at 7:45:33, the next 4 entries in that log, once I compiled it, were a black Chevy Malibu.
Is that what drew your attention?
Yes.
All right. And was it significant to you and other law enforcement officers that it was close in time to when you saw the jogger?
It was.
And tell us why.
It was significant just being in the area. So it was just someone we really felt we needed to identify, whoever the driver was of that vehicle, to see if they saw something, if they knew who Mollie was or passed them or whatever. We just wanted to know who was driving that vehicle.
Now, were there distinctive features of the black Chevy Malibu that drew your attention?
Yeah, some of the features on it that were distinctive as opposed to a standard Malibu. It had chrome side mirrors. So the outside of the mirror was chrome. The door handles to the vehicle were chrome. And then it appeared to have chrome mag rims on the vehicle as well.
And did you take any steps or efforts, or did others to figure out if any of those features were standard on a black Chevy Malibu?
We did.
And what did you determine?
We determined that they were kind of a specialty item, or could have been an aftermarket item as well.
What was the aftermarket item?
Would have been the mirrors.
Okay. The chrome handles.
I don't recall if those were aftermarket or could have been through the factory. I don't recall that.
All right. And then the rims that you noticed, would those have been factory or aftermarket, or do you know?
I don't know.
The only feature that stood out to you would have been the chrome mirrors.
Well, I mean, as opposed to other Malibus you see on the road, the chrome mirrors, the door handles, and the mag rims are what were distinctive to me when viewing it on video.
And actually, that's was evident on the surveillance video that you viewed, those particular features.
Yes, it was.
Okay. All right. So after you see, yes, sure.
We need to take a break
Sure.
at this time. So members of the jury, I want to remind you of your admonition. We'll take a break here for 10 minutes. Leave your notebooks where they are, and Carrie will tell you when you can step out. Should be just momentarily. Thank you, everyone. And sir, you can step down.
The different locations this car was at around the time of 7:45
We did.
on July 18th of 2018.
Correct.
Okay. Were there other times during the surveillance video where that particular car that you just described appears?
Yes.
All right. Tell us again, before we look at the first video clip, when was it that the jogger went through on the video? What was the time?
The timestamp was 7:45:33 or 19:45:33 on the timestamp.
And then when did you first see the black Malibu go through the video?
It would have been approximately 20 to 30 seconds later.
Okay. And which direction is it traveling?
It was going to be coming up East Des Moines Street, traveling west.
Okay. And have you reviewed that particular part of the video?
Yes.
All right. I have on the screen right now, State's Exhibit 14. Is this a video clip?
It is.
All right. And would this be the first time that you would have seen the black Malibu that you described in relation to the runner that we've already viewed?
It is.
All right. We'll play State's Exhibit 14. By the way, before we play it, looking at the exhibit, directionally, where does the black Malibu appear first?
The black Malibu will come from the same direction as where the jogger came through. So down by the gray house, traveling toward the red and white truck.
Okay. We'll show the video. Okay, we'll look at it one more time.
Wow.
Agent Riessen, prior to coming in to trial, were we able to screenshot part of this video to get a better look at the black Malibu?
Yes,
And have you seen that photo?
yes,
We'll show you what's been admitted as Exhibit 15. Do you see that?
I do.
On the screen is Exhibit 15. First of all, before we zoom in, what is this that you notice on the black Malibu?
The mirrors being chromed, the door handles, the chrome rims were immediately identifiable to me.
That's a closer version of that photo. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. You can't identify the driver
No.
or the plate.
No.
All right. Okay. Agent Riessen, State's Exhibit 16 is now on the screen. You see that?
I do.
This is a video clip and shows us what direction again?
This would be to the north and east of the Collins residence.
And do you see that what appears to be that same vehicle passing through this particular video?
Yes, we do.
All right. And that the date and time stamp on this video is what?
It would be July 18th, 2018, 1947 and 51 seconds.
So just shortly after the video that we viewed a minute ago.
Correct.
Do you agree?
Yes.
And where I have the laser pointer, is that where we see the black Malibu come through?
It is.
Okay, we'll play the video. State's Exhibit 16. This was a video that drew your attention.
It was.
It appears to be the same car.
Yes.
All right, we'll watch it a second time. Did you likewise, did we take a screenshot of this video to get a static view of the car?
Yes.
And this is State's Exhibit 17 that's on the screen.
It is.
Right. Where'd my laser pointer at? What is that?
That's what we believe to be a black Chevy Malibu.
Okay.
No. You're full of all sorts of what? No, it was maroon, I think. Oh, you mean the Chevy?
In looking at this photo, I've enhanced it just a bit on the screen. State's Exhibit 17. Can you catch the chrome
Yeah,
mirror?
it does.
Do you see it?
Yes, I see it.
And it's located here. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Where I've got the laser pointer?
Yes.
How funny would you be seeing yourself on the TV?
Going in
No,
chronological order, then did you see the Malibu yet another time pass through the surveillance cameras?
Yes, sir.
And what street was that on?
I believe that would have been back on East Des Moines.
Okay.
The best one I saw on a shirt, it was actually a singlet. You know, the old wife beater ones, the blue singlet. And in the tiniest little writing, right on the breast pocket. So you actually had to like lean right in really close to read it. And it said, "Nosy little fucker, aren't you?"
And at what time do we have on the date and time stamp for this particular video, which is State's Exhibit 18?
The timestamp on the video is 1948 hours and 44 seconds.
Okay. We'll watch that video.
We're back again. Wow.
Okay. Okay, Agent Riessen, I'm going to play it a second time, but just for purposes of the record, generally, where do we see the black Malibu come from on the video, and what
Wow.
direction is it traveling?
It's traveling
Right on to
from
that.
west to east, so it appears near the red and white truck and travels down East Des Moines Street toward Boundary.
And we'll watch it a second time.
I'll just go faster this time. Whee!
Were we able to likewise take a screenshot of that vehicle that we just saw in this particular video?
We were.
All right, and what's on the screen is State's Exhibit 19. Do you see the black Malibu?
I do.
This is the black Malibu.
Yes, sir.
Do you see those same features that you just described?
I do, specifically the door handles and the chrome mirror.
We'll take a closer look at that. Do you see the wheels, the mirror, and the handles that you described?
I do.
All right, and okay. What was the last time that you observed this particular vehicle pass through the surveillance cameras at 616 East Des Moines?
It would have been at 8:07, approximately 8:07 p.m., 8:06 and 55 seconds, I believe. It would have been traveling from west to east on East Des Moines Street.
The same direction that we have here in State's Exhibit 19, is that correct?
Correct.
All right. On any of these video surveillance cameras, can you identify the driver or the plate?
No, sir.
Is there any enhancement that you're aware of that could have provided that?
Not that I'm aware of.
State's Exhibit 20 is on the screen. The date and time stamp is July 18th of 2018 at 20:06 and some seconds.
55 seconds, yes.
And 20:06 is in normal time is what?
8:06
In
p.m.
All right, we'll play Exhibit 20. Right, do you see that same Chevy Malibu pass through on East Des Moines Street?
I do.
Headed to the east?
Correct.
This would again be headed towards the area where we had seen the jogger about 20 minutes before.
Yes, it would.
All right, we'll look at State's Exhibit 20 one additional time. How would you describe the rate of speed of that car in comparison to the other videos that we've observed?
In my opinion, on this trip, there would seem to be going faster to me.
All right, and State's Exhibit 21 is on the screen. What is this that we're looking at, State's Exhibit 21?
The black Chevy Malibu in a still photo.
And the same spoked wheels that we see on the other vehicles in the other videos are
Yep.
here.
Same mag wheels, same chrome door handles, and the chrome side mirrors.
This is just a blown up version of what we have on the screen. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I want to go back to an overall exhibit here. Exhibit 4 is now on the screen. Do you see that?
I do.
We have marked on the map, we mark it as a Tibbetts sighting. This is the area of the runner. Is that correct?
That is correct.
This is Boundary Street that I have my cursor on. Is that right?
Yep.
And East Des Moines runs east and west. Is that true?
That is true.
Up here, what street is that?
That's 385th.
And the surveillance camera from the Collins residence on the sighting would have been generally from his residence to the southeast.
That is accurate.
All right, Agent Riessen, after reviewing each of those videos and the stills and collecting that information, did you relay that to other law enforcement?
I did.
Okay, and I know we've looked at 4 different clips here of the Chevy Malibu from 3 different camera angles. Were there other camera angles that showed the same car?
Yes.
Okay, there's an additional camera, correct, that faced more to the north?
Yes.
Could you see the same vehicle on that camera as well?
Yes, you could.
And if it faced north, it would catch it in generally the same direction that we had whenever the camera was facing northeast. Is that right?
That is accurate.
Okay. Did you see the black Chevy Malibu pass through the surveillance area after 8:07 and 55 seconds?
No, sir.
Now, I know we've looked at the Chevy Malibu. Were there other vehicles that were on the video?
Yes, there were.
All right, did you pass that same information along to law enforcement? Any other vehicle that would have drawn your attention?
We passed along the spreadsheet that was created, all the vehicles that were on there. There were some people, for instance, Christina Stewart was going to her parents, were able to identify who was in that car, that kind of thing.
So Christina Stewart's van appears on the video traveling on East Des Moines Street.
It does.
At about what time do you recall?
1953 on the timestamp.
Okay. And you knew that was her vehicle?
Yes, later, once we were gaining information and looking into people who live on the road, travel that road, that sort of thing.
Now, as a law enforcement officer, as generally in investigations, do you develop what are called leads?
Certainly.
What's a lead?
It's a piece of information that needs to be followed up on to see if it leads anywhere toward a resolution of an investigation.
Okay. Some leads are dead ends.
Sure.
Some leads are more fruitful. Would that be true?
That's true.
But you follow those leads as a law enforcement officer, as do other law enforcement officers. Is that correct?
Yes.
This information that you had on the video concerning the black Malibu, would that have been a significant lead to law enforcement?
Yes, in my opinion.
All right. And particularly with regard to this car and the timing of when you see the runner, why is that?
The vehicle passed through numerous times after seeing the runner pass through the.
All right, my lovelies, I'm going to have to go and lay down. I will keep this running, and I will start the next one, which is in 45, about 10 minutes. And I'll be watching it in the bedroom. All right, I'll be there. I just need to lay.
Video, just within, from the time the runner went through until 8:07, there was 14 vehicles seen on those cameras. 6 of those were the Malibu.
Okay. All right. All right, that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Defense may cross-examine.
Thank you. Agent Riessen, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. The spreadsheet you made also allowed agents to perhaps track down some of the registered owners of the vehicles, right?
That was the goal, yes.
Yeah, and that's where you got Christina Stewart, correct?
Yes, sir.
There was also a Brian Kriegel. You recall that name?
I remember seeing it on there, yes.
And what was the relevance of Mr. Kriegel?
If I recall, he was, there was a new home being developed out there that he had a connection to.
And he lived on 385th, right?
Correct.
There's also an individual who is suspected of being on that video at 7:31 p.m. named Jackson Eichhorn. Recall that?
I do recall that.
What's the significance of Jackson Eichhorn?
Jackson Eichhorn was a high school friend and associate acquaintance of Mollie Tibbetts. She was a few years older than him.
Okay. And you saw that him or a vehicle suspected to be his following the same route that the jogger was on, correct?
It was preceding the jogger.
Okay, but it was the same route.
Sure.
And that pickup came to the intersection where the jogger also came, and then you never saw it again, right?
Correct.
And then it was suspected that pickup, the dark pickup, took a right and then went into the cemetery. Is that right?
We couldn't see that on video.
Okay, that was your suspicion.
It was a suspicion.
Okay. And that cemetery is basically right at the end of East Des Moines Street, right?
Yes, East Des Moines will carry right into the cemetery.
Did you ever go out to the cemetery?
I did.
And what was the purpose of you going to the cemetery?
We were just trying to get a better lay of the land, seeing what could be seen from the cemetery out to 385th. We found that it's kind of a, there's a slight upgrade, toward the road. It's hard to see things during that time of year with corn growth and things.
But you can't see 385th from the cemetery.
You couldn't see it well because of the corn in the field.
Sure.
So you can see over top of it, you can see the houses to the north side of the road.
Okay, very well. Now, the first time, or strike that, the jogger is seen running north at 7:45, which would be 7:48, correct?
Yes,
Okay, and we can't identify that jogger. We suspect, though, it's Mollie Tibbetts.
that's what we suspected. Yes.
And Mr. Brown showed you the videos. The first video that we saw, Exhibit 14, shows the Malibu driving westbound, right?
Yes.
And that's away from the direction of the jogger, correct?
Correct.
And the second video, again, shows the black Malibu, again, driving westbound, away from the direction of the jogger, right?
Correct.
And the final video, where you said that Malibu is driving at a higher rate of speed, that's at 8:10 p.m.
8:07 p.m.
But the true time is 8:10, right?
Yes, sir.
And what is your knowledge of the time where we believe Mollie Tibbetts was finally abducted?
I don't have that. I don't have that information.
Okay. If I told you 8:20, would that jog your memory?
That would make sense to me.
So we had the Malibu going by at 8:10 and Mollie Tibbetts being abducted at 8:20.
Well, speaking about this, I was 8:20 to 8:30 range is what I would say.
Okay. And is it your understanding that she was abducted near the intersection of 385th Avenue and 200th Street?
If that's the gravel road, the 200th Street.
Okay, let's assume it is.
That's what the assumption is.
Did you travel out to that location?
I had been out to that location.
How far is that location from the city limits of Brooklyn?
I'm not sure exactly where the city limits stop, but roughly from where the jogger was seen to that location is a little over 2 miles.
Okay. Now, who put the yellow dot on your map?
I'm not sure.
And that yellow dot was there because someone had identified surveillance cameras on Mr. Logan's home?
Yes,
Do you know when those surveillance cameras were identified?
I do not.
Did you only search the surveillance video for that 1 hour period on the 18th?
That's where we started on the 18th, was working off of our timeline that we were basing the investigation from.
How much footage has law enforcement reviewed off of Logan Collins' cameras?
At the time I can speak to. Since then, I can't speak to that.
Did Mr. Collins indicate to you how much footage was saved on the system?
I believe he had a 1 terabyte DVR, so it would be significant, 30 days or so.
Okay. So if you downloaded the information on what, August 14th?
Yes,
You'd have 30 days back from August 14th, right?
correct.
That put it somewhere in the vicinity of July 16th. That sound about right?
Yes,
So we would have at least a couple days of footage that law enforcement could review to see if anybody was stalking or trying to see Mollie on those 2 days from that camera, right?
what we chose to do was work off of our timeline. So we started at the knowns versus unknowns and kind of worked that direction.
Okay. But the point is, once you had the 18th nailed down, law enforcement did no more work on reviewing that footage, right?
Did no more work from working out from that time period.
Correct.
Yes, we were identifying the cars, vehicles, and people closest to when we saw the jogger.
Okay. So the point is, you never saw the black Malibu other than that one small time period.
I did not review any other time.
All right. Your investigation, over and above the video review, involved trying to speak to Wayne Chaney,
I did.
and you asked Wayne Chaney to give a statement,
I did.
and he was not cooperative, was he?
He was for a while. We were able to sit down and speak for a while, but he did leave the interview.
Okay. Now, were you also involved? Respect that. What was the desire to speak to Mr. Chaney arise from,
Just case facts that had come up throughout the investigation.
and what were those case facts?
A lot of it was just statements he had made. Path of, once again, according to our timeline and locations, path of travel could have been out by his property.
As I understand it, the investigation was focusing on the southeast corner of Powashik County, right?
Correct.
And that's where Mr. Chaney lived, right?
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Cheney had a history of violence with women, right?
I don't specifically recall that.
If there were a tip that came in involving an individual who had a history of violence with women in that area, in your training, education, and experience, would that be somebody that law enforcement would want to talk to?
Absolutely.
If there were an individual in that area of the county who had a history of sexual deviance or sexual violence toward women, would that be an individual law enforcement would want to talk to?
Yes.
Did the name Ron Pexa ever come up in your investigation?
Not in my portion, no.
Were you involved at all in a canvass of the 2400 block or the 2300 block of 460th Avenue?
No, sir.
Were you at all involved with responding to the scene where Ms. Tibbetts' body was recovered?
I was not.
In your training, education, and experience, once a body is recovered, like in a location where Ms. Tibbetts' body was recovered, would you want to interview persons in the area to see if they had seen or known anything out of the ordinary?
Certainly.
Like next door neighbor, perhaps?
Yes.
If someone, the next house down the road within a quarter or half a mile from where her body was discovered, would you not want to interview that person?
That'd be something you get to in the sense that obviously the location of the deceased becomes the primary. And so once again, kind of like the video, you start there and work out.
And if that person who lived close to the location of the body had a history of violence against women or sexual deviance or sexual violence against women, you'd want to talk to that person again, wouldn't you?
Yes.
Now, that's all I have.
State have any redirect?
No, Your Honor, no more questions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. You're excused. You may step down. You may proceed when you're ready, Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Judge. Ms. Romero, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Can you please state your name for the record?
Yes, my name is Pamela Romero.
And how do you spell your last name?
Romero.
Ms. Romero, currently, how are you employed?
I am the Learning and Development Specialist at West Liberty Foods, located in West Liberty, Iowa.
And what is West Liberty Foods?
It's a turkey process meat factory.
And how long have you worked for West Liberty Foods?
It's going to be 2 years in June 26th of this year.
Do you have any prior law enforcement experience?
Yes,
Can you please describe that for the jury?
yes. I graduated from Cedar Rapids Police Academy back in 2015. and I started working with the West Liberty Police Department for 2.5 years, later transferring to the Iowa City Police Department for 11 months. And I'm currently a part-timer with West Liberty Police Department.
So when would you have left law enforcement? Do you recall?
Yes, it was December of 2018.
And you live in West Liberty and now work there, correct?
Yes,
You have a family, is that right?
that is right.
You're married?
Yes,
How many children?
4,
All right. And their ages range?
20, 14, 10, and 14 months.
And what are family reasons the chief reason that you went back to West Liberty to work there?
Family obligations.
Did you enjoy law enforcement?
Yes,
Do you hope to return to it full time at some point?
yes, I wish I could.
Okay. You're getting ready to move, is that right?
That is correct.
Where are you going?
Texas, 14 miles up north from Dallas.
Is this a transfer for your husband?
That is correct, yes.
All right, Ms. Romero, take you back to your law enforcement days. As a police officer with West Liberty and Iowa City, did you receive any specific training in interview techniques?
Yes, when I was with the West Liberty Police Department, they sent me to training back in December of 2016 for one of the CTK classes. And then I went back to the advanced class in February of 2017.
Okay, whenever you say CTK classes, is that the acronym for the officers that run the school?
Yes,
There are DCI agents, is that right?
that is correct, yes.
Specs.
All the time, informal and formal.
All right, and the same is true in Iowa City?
That is correct, yes, in Iowa City too.
Were you a patrol officer there?
Yes,
All right, did you work any particular shift in Iowa City?
it was the night shift. I believe at that time I was working 7 p.m. to 7 a.m.
All right, let's get us a bit of background on you. Do you speak Spanish?
Yes,
How would you characterize your fluency?
I am native speaker.
What do you mean by that?
I usually use my Spanish 90% on my daily routines. At work with my family, we even have a rule at home that we cannot speak English. It has to be Spanish.
Okay, so Spanish is your first language.
Yes,
Were you born here in the United States?
I was not.
Where
I
were you born?
was born in the north part of Mexico, Durango.
Okay, when did you immigrate to the United States?
Back in 1989, I was 10 years old.
Did you come here with your family?
Yes, to the small town of West Liberty, Iowa.
And did your parents work at the same food processing plant that you work at now?
Not my parents, but my brothers did.
When did you learn English?
I came here, I was enrolled in school. I was enrolled in 5th grade, so I learned English in school till I graduated from West Liberty.
Did you go on to college?
Yes,
Where did you go to college?
William Penn University,
All right, and did you receive a degree?
my associates, yes.
And okay, an associate's in what area?
Science degrees. I was going into teaching, and then I just completed the 2 years.
Tell us again what the degree was in.
Science degree, just getting the basics out towards my teaching degree.
Did you go on to receive a 4-year degree?
No one.
In your duties at West Liberty and Iowa City as a police officer, were you frequently called on to interact with Spanish-speaking persons?
Yes,
Both suspects and witnesses, I would assume?
yes.
did you have numerous occasions to interact with people in that way
Yes.
in your law enforcement capacity?
Yes.
All right. Ms. Romero, I want to direct your attention to July of 2018. Did you become aware of an investigation that was being conducted in Poweshiek County involving the disappearance of Mollie Tibbetts?
Yes. I was made aware.
Okay. And were you requested to assist law enforcement in speaking to potential Spanish-speaking witnesses?
Yes. The first time that I got involved, I was with the Iowa City Police Department, and they told me that they needed assistance with the Hispanic community for me to go ahead and do interviews in Spanish.
And how many days in July did you spend in Poweshiek County assisting in the investigation in that manner?
1 day.
Moving forward to August 20th of 2018, were you contacted by law enforcement in Poweshiek County to come to Montezuma to interview a person identified to you as Cristhian Rivera?
When I was contacted, I was not made aware that I was going to go ahead and interview Mr. Rivera. I was I had the idea that I was called down there to assist again with my Spanish-speaking skills.
Okay. And did you come to Montezuma then on August the 20th of 2018 for that purpose?
Yes.
At some point, were you told that you were needed to assist in the interview of the defendant?
Yes.
When were you? I'm sorry, go ahead.
When I got there.
When you arrived in Montezuma?
Yes.
And it may be obvious at this point, but why were you chosen to be the person to interview the defendant?
It was brought to the understanding that Mr. Rivera spoke Spanish, so me being a native speaker, it will be easier for me and him to communicate.
And were you briefed at the time by officers that were involved in the investigation as to what the facts were of the investigation to that point?
Yes, DCI agents and FBI agents.
At the time that you were requested to assist in the investigation, had the body of Mollie Tibbetts yet been located?
No.
Whenever you came to Montezuma, did you come with any other Iowa City police officer?
Yes, at that time I was traveling with Sergeant Fink.
Sorry, say that again.
Sergeant Fink.
F-I-N-K?
Yes.
And what is Sergeant Fink's first name? Is it Jeff?
Yes.
Sorry, that's okay. Whenever you left Iowa City, where was the first place you went to then in Poweshiek County?
We went to the sheriff's office in Poweshiek County.
Is that where you met with other officers that you just described?
Yes,
And you were briefed on the investigation at that point?
that is correct. Yes.
Was that the time when it was decided that you would attempt to interview the defendant, Cristhian Bahena Rivera?
Yes.
When was the first time that you met the defendant?
It was at that time he was sitting out in the lobby, and I was told by the DCI agents that he was out there. So I went out there to introduce myself. I told him who I was. Told him I'm Officer Romero with Iowa City Police Department at the time, and told him, thank him for being there and for being patient, and to let him know that I was going to go ahead and be a few minutes for us to go ahead and bring him back.
So you went out initially and introduced yourself?
Yes.
Then you went back to where?
Back to the room where the other agents were at.
Whenever you met the defendant the first time, was he with anybody else?
No,
Did he appear to have a cell phone at his disposal, at his use?
he had his cell phone in his hands.
Did he appear to be using it by your observation?
The motion that he had, he was leaning forward with the phone on his hand.
Where he was at in the sheriff's office at Poweshiek County in Montezuma, was that a secure area?
Yes, well, part of it, I'm guessing. I'm not really familiar with the area. So the part where I was at, it was not secure.
Okay, the lobby area where you met him,
Correct.
it would have been open to the general public?
Yes.
You do identify yourself as a police officer?
Yes.
Were you wearing a uniform or badge or any type of insignia?
No, I was not wearing the uniform, but I did have my gun, which it's required when you carry, you have to have your badge with you. So I did have my badge, but it was on my belt. I don't think it was seen by Mr. Rivera.
After speaking with officers, after introducing yourself to the defendant, did you then go back out to the lobby to get him, to bring him back to attempt an interview?
Yes.
Was the defendant cooperative?
Yes, he was.
Where did you take him to be interviewed?
We took him to one of the back interview rooms. Again, where it was at. I'm not very familiar with the building myself. It was just an interview room.
Did you take his phone away from him?
No.
Were you pleasant with him?
Yes,
in the manner that we're speaking here today?
I believe this is the same tone that I was using with him.
Whenever you showed him back to the interview room, did you point out the exits to him?
Yes, I made sure I knew where the exits were before I took him down. When we were walking down, it was myself and Mr. Rivera, and I show him there's the exit sign right there. That means that it's an exit door.
And the door, was there a door on the room that you conducted the interview in?
Yes, there was a door, which I showed to Mr. Rivera that the door was unlocked.
Did you tell him he could leave at any time?
Yes, I did.
Was he agreeable to speak with you?
Yes, he was.
So up until this point, what language were you speaking with the defendant?
Spanish.
Right. When the interview began shortly after, what language were you speaking with the defendant?
Spanish.
All right. And was the interview recorded?
Yes, it was.
Recorded by video
Yes.
and audio?
Yes.
If we were to sit and watch the video and audio of this recorded interview, would we see two people speaking in Spanish?
You will go ahead and see 3 people speaking Spanish.
Jeff
There
Fink
was
I'm sorry. go ahead.
Sergeant Jeff Fink, myself, and Mr. Rivera.
Did the defendant ever converse with you in English?
No.
So unless we understand Spanish, we're not going to understand the video interview by watching it, correct?
It will be difficult if you're not fluent in Spanish just because of the speed of the conversation.
We'd have to be fluent in Spanish in order to understand it, in your opinion?
In my opinion, yes.
Agent Romero, are you able to translate your conversation that you had with the defendant on the night of August 20th and morning of August 21st of 2018?
Yes.
Have you had an opportunity to review both video as well as transcripts prior to coming in here today?
Yes.
And do you recall the interview also from your own memory as to what was said during that interview?
Yes.
Prior to going into the interview, Agent Romero, you did not know the location of Mollie Tibbetts' body?
No.
Did you know that Mollie Tibbetts' body had been covered by corn leaves and was located in a cornfield? Did you have that knowledge before talking to Cristhian Bahena Rivera?
No.
Did you know or have any knowledge as to the injuries sustained by Mollie Tibbetts that caused her death?
No.
Did you have any knowledge as to Mollie Tibbetts' blood being located in the black Chevy Malibu? Did you have that knowledge?
No.
Because at that time, Mollie Tibbetts had not been recovered, correct?
That is correct.
And no blood had been found at that point in the black Chevy Malibu, correct?
Correct.
Because it had not been analyzed yet by the DCI.
Correct.
During your interview with Mr. Rivera, overall, how would you describe his demeanor?
He was friendly. We had a very friendly conversation. I thought so. We were very immersed in the conversation. I was making the questions. He was answering them. Very engaged.
Did he ever appear to not comprehend any question that you asked him?
No.
Did you ever not comprehend any answer that he gave?
No.
At the beginning of the interview, Ms. Romero, did you speak with the defendant about the vehicle that he drove?
Yes. At the beginning of the interview, I spoke to him about his work of employment, family history, and the vehicles that he had, who he lived with, and his residence, and just rapport building.
Okay, let's just speak specifically about the vehicle. We'll get
Okay.
into the other things, but did you talk to him about the vehicle that he drove?
Yes.
And what did he tell you about the vehicle that he drove?
He actually told me that he had 2 vehicles. One was a black Malibu, Chevy Malibu, that he had purchased from one of his cousins. I believe, if I do recall correctly, it was somewhere in Tama, a dealership, that he was making payments towards that car because the actual owner of that vehicle was his cousin. And then he also mentioned another vehicle, an Altima, that he stated that he usually drove in the gravel back roads of the town because the information that he gave me is the reason why he did that is because the vehicle was not up to date with the registrations, the Altima, and the black Malibu, it was fine. So he was the one, he said that he drove that one around town.
During the interview with the defendant, did you allow him to keep his cell phone?
Yes.
Did you allow him to use his cell phone whenever he wanted to?
Yes.
All right. During the first part of the interview, you had mentioned earlier that you talked to him about his family.
Yes.
Did you talk to him about his job?
Yes.
What did he tell you about his family and his job?
He told me that he had been here 7 years in the United States, 4 years in Brooklyn, working in the farms that he stated that he was working at. He gave me information about cousins, uncles living in the closed areas.
You had mentioned earlier that this was what you called rapport building.
Yes.
Is this something that you had been trained on with regard to conducting an interview?
Yes.
What's the purpose of rapport building?
Getting to know the person that you're talking to.
And during this part of the interview, were you able to get to know the defendant?
Yes.
Did you ask him where he was currently working?
Yes.
Where was that?
Jeremy Farms.
And did he tell you what his jobs were at Yerby Farms?
Yes, he did. He told me that when he started his employment with Jeremy Farms, he was milking cows. And later he told me that he moved to another position that it was a lot easier, which it was cleaning the sections.
Before we move on to the next section of the interview, Ms. Romero, overall in this interview and interaction with the defendant, did you take frequent breaks?
Yes.
And do you know, on all of the interactions that you had with him, was it always you and Jeff Fink that were in the room, or were there times when one or the both of you would leave?
Okay, can you all hear me?
One of the other ones.
I'm
will
back.
leave. I was all the time with Mr. Rivera.
Did you provide him food?
Yes, I did. And the hours of the interview, I believe we gave him approximately 8 to 9 breaks.
And did you provide him a full meal at one point?
Yes, there was a sandwich, and I even asked what beverage was his preference, and I provided that to him.
And you allowed him time to eat that meal?
He had approximately 25 minutes to eat.
And again, was he always tracking questions that you were asking him?
Yes.
Or did he appear sleepy to you at any time?
Yes, maybe towards the end. I mean, at the end of the interview, everybody was tired. I was also tired myself.
Okay. All right. After the initial part of the interview, did you then turn to whether or not the defendant knew or had seen Mollie Tibbetts?
Yes.
Do you recall how far into the interview with him, as far as time, that you raised Mollie Tibbetts for the first time?
Yes, I do not recall the exact time, but it was approximately an hour and 45 minutes into the interview.
And do you know if it was before or after he had had something to eat? Do you recall?
I do not recall.
Did you then begin to gather facts or attempt to gather facts about the defendant's possible knowledge of Mollie Tibbetts' disappearance?
Yes.
What does he initially say with regard to Mollie Tibbetts?
Mr. Rivera told me that he had no idea who she was, and she told me that he had never seen her.
Did you have a photo of Mollie Tibbetts that you showed the defendant?
At that time, I pulled out one of the posters, the flyers that had Mollie Tibbetts' face. I put it in front of the Mr. Rivera, and he looked at it, and he goes, "Yes, I have seen them around town. They are all over town." And at that point, he also added that he remembered seeing Mollie's boyfriend at one of the local gas stations.
But initially, he denied having ever known Mollie Tibbetts. Is that true?
That is true.
Or having any contact with her?
That is true. He stated he kept a picture of, or the copy of the poster flyer in his car.
At all points forward in the interview, Ms. Romero, sorry, I have to wait for them to switch. At all points forward in the interview, Ms. Romero, with the defendant, was your understanding that you were talking about the disappearance of Mollie Tibbetts with the defendant?
Yes.
And when you use the terms her or she, were you referring to Mollie Tibbetts?
Yes.
Was it your understanding that the defendant did the same?
Yes.
All right. Was there a time then, just after raising bringing in Mollie Tibbetts to the interview, was there a time during the interview that you then showed him a photo of a vehicle that was taken from surveillance in Brooklyn from the home of Logan Collins?
Yes. So I was provided with 3 pictures of a black vehicle that was obtained, I was told, by one of the DCI agents from the Logan Collins surveillance video. That photo showed the black Malibu.
And had you received those 3 photos at one of the breaks that you had taken during the interview
Yes.
while you were at the Powesheik County Sheriff's Office?
Yes.
Did you show those photos to Cristhian Bahena Rivera?
Yes, I did.
Hang on a second, sorry. It's how did you display them to him?
I was just gonna say that I laid them out in front of him, the 3 pictures together.
Okay.
I said, can you please look at them for me? He looked at them and his response was, yes, that is my car.
Did you even have to ask him if it was his car, or did he just volunteer that?
He volunteered to say that that was his car.
Were these were still shots taken from the surveillance camera? Is that right?
That is what I was told, yes.
Did it have a time and date stamp on it?
Yes, they did, which I pointed out to Mr. Rivera. He stated that, yes, it was 1948, the time, and July 18, the date.
Okay, so 1948 would be 7:48 p.m.
Yes, army time.
and the date would have been July 18th.
Yes,
So that date and timestamp would have been on the photocopy of the photo that you showed him.
yes.
Did you ask him if he was the sole owner of the Malibu?
I asked him if he was driving the vehicle that date and time. He said, yes, that was me. I asked him, is anyone else in the car with you at that time in that particular date? He goes, no, it was just me.
Were you aware at that point, Ms. Romero, that a runner had been seen on the surveillance video taken from Logan Collins' residence?
Yes, there was one of the pictures. It was shown that there was a person.
Okay. And did you point that out to the defendant?
Yes, I pointed out to the person that was running, and that's what I told Mr. Rivera. You see this person that is running? He said, yes, she was running.
Okay. So he used the term she.
Yes,
Okay. Now, the picture that you would have shown him would have been essentially a shadowed dot. Is that right?
that is right.
All right. Was there any way to tell in the photo that you used with the defendant if it was male or female?
No.
He used the term her.
Yes.
All right. Ms. Romero, at this point, did the defendant then describe seeing anyone running in Brooklyn at about that time on that date?
Yes, he went on describing that it was a female girl running.
Did he say at this point how many times he observed this female runner while in Brooklyn?
Mr. Rivera told me that he saw her 3 times. He saw her first, turned around, came back. He stated that she even waved at him and smiled. And then he went back, and that is when he continued doing what he was doing at the time.
What was it that he was supposedly doing in Brooklyn?
He stated that he was trying to find his way around town, that he was heading to his uncle's residence to obtain a vacuum cleaner.
So he told you that he saw a female running on
Yes.
3 different occasions. Did he ever place himself out on the county blacktop east of Brooklyn?
The way that Mr. Rivera described that first sight of the female was, it was in a paved road near a curve.
Did he ever indicate that he got out of his car or engaged her in any way?
Not at that particular time.
All right. So he never would have had any contact with Mollie Tibbetts other than, at least that's what he said, never had any contact with her other than seeing her.
At that time, yes.
After seeing her the last time, the 3rd time, where did he say he went in Brooklyn?
Mr. Rivera told me that he lost track of her, that he lost sight of her, and continued on his way to pick up the vacuum cleaner.
Did he then say where he went?
Into town, I am guessing, because he told me that he was going to his uncle's residence, which it was in the trailer court inside Brooklyn.
Now, did you have a discussion with the defendant about the appearance of the runner, female runner that he saw?
Yes, I asked her what he thought of the female runner first, and his answer was, I found her attractive. I asked him what she was wearing. He said black shirts, maybe a top sport bra, and he continued describing. He did not say the name of it, but he just said one of those things that you put on to measure your steps or to hold your cell phone.
Or to what? Hold your cell phone?
The cell phone.
Okay. Did he ever use any other term other than attractive to describe the runner that he saw?
He stated at one point that he thought that she was hot.
All right. Ms. Romero, during this conversation, does the defendant ever admit to you that he had anything to do with harming Mollie Tibbetts?
Right at that time, he said no.
A break was taken after this discussion.
Yes.
During that break, was Cristhian Rivera placed into custody?
Yes.
All right.
That
And did the interview then continue in the vehicle later on that morning?
Yes.
So later on in the morning at approximately 4:30 a.m., did you, Cristhian Bahena Rivera, and another officer leave the sheriff's office?
Yes. Officer Kiwi, an agent from FBI, and myself and Mr. Rivera left the office.
And where did you go?
We went to Mr. Rivera's residence and the farm that he worked at. I believe it was the property. Yes.
All right. That's an area in southeast of Brooklyn, correct?
I'm not familiar with the area, but yes, that's Powashik County.
Then did you proceed to a rural area in far eastern Powashik County?
We landed in a cornfield.
Okay, I'm going to show you a photo.
Okay.
States, it's the all right. Do you see States Exhibit 3 there on the screen, Ms. Romero?
Yes, I do.
This location that is on the map is 2478 460th Avenue. You see that?
Yes, I do.
What kind of road is that?
Gravel road.
All right. Is it, even for a rural county, is that area pretty rural?
Yes,
Okay.
it was a cornfield. It was cornfields all around us.
Okay. That's a good point. This is July or August of 2018, correct?
Yes.
So the corn is up, right?
Yes, it was August 21st already. Yes.
Right. So the corn is up and it is at least about head high. Would you agree?
Yes. The grass was pretty tall too.
The nearest town to where this location is that you went with Mr. Rivera, the defendant, is nearest the town of Guernsey. Is that right?
Yes.
And it's almost to the Iowa.
I don't know why I'm talking because I can sit here and talk. No, you didn't wake me from my slumber. I'm watching it. I just need to lie down. That's all. I'm still here.
All right. And in the vehicle, did you, were you in the vehicle with the defendant roadside at that location that we see here on Exhibit 3?
Yes.
Okay, we're going to look at it, Exhibit, I believe it's 25.
I
Exhibit
reckon she's a
25 is
perfectionist,
the
yes.
general area that
Sure.
you would then parked roadside with the defendant, Cristhian Bahena
Nothing
Rivera.
wrong with that.
Yes, that's where we were parked.
Okay, to the right on this photo, there is an opening to a cornfield. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Through that
Aww.
area.
This is going to be awful.
Mollie Tibbetts' body.
Oh, dear.
Did you ever go out to the location of the body?
Yes.
And were other officers present at this location?
Yes, there were.
I'm actually
Which
popping my
direction
legs
are
up.
we
Well
looking
done.
here? We would be looking back
My new
to these, so
sheet's
that would be
dirty.
accurate.
That will be accurate.
Okay. And then exhibit number 26, if we can see that.
This
The
is
opening to
revolting.
that cornfield there is on the left on exhibit 26. Do you see that?
Yes.
And generally, is this area show where you were parked in the vehicle with the defendant?
Yes, we were close to that white vehicle.
Say that again.
We were like in front of that, where that white vehicle is right now, like in front of that. Like if those vehicles were not there then, but it was close to that area.
It's a little bit further up the road is what I'm hearing you say.
Yes,
And this is looking back to the west. Would that be true?
that will be true.
Was there any fence between the two posts or to cross into the cornfield?
No, there wasn't.
All right.
It's not a mess.
Ms. Romero, whenever you got back into the vehicle, did you read the defendant his Miranda warnings?
Yes, I did. So inside the vehicle was Mr. Rivera, myself, and Sergeant Jeff. And
Did you waive those?
yes, he wanted to talk to me.
And did you then ask him what happened between he and Mollie Tibbetts?
I asked Mr. Rivera to give me all the details that he could remember since he approached Mollie Tibbetts.
All right. What was the first thing the defendant told you about seeing a female on July 18th of 2018 near Brooklyn, Iowa at or near 7:45 p.m.?
He told me he saw her running again 3 times. One of those times he parked his car behind her, ran after her or jogged after her, came close to her that she noticed him. She turns around, makes the attempt to use his cell phone to call the police. At this point, Mr. Rivera told me that he got angry and that is when they started fighting.
Okay. All right, let's break that apart just a bit. So the defendant on this occasion, this is while you were seated in the car roadside that we just saw, correct?
Yes,
He admits seeing Mollie Tibbetts,
yes,
and he indicates that he followed her.
yes,
Okay, whenever you say that he said that he followed her, did he indicate that he followed her in his car for a period?
yes.
Did he then tell you that he stopped his car
He said I parked my car, yes,
and he got out of his vehicle?
and I started jogging behind her.
Is there
Great.
another officer in the vehicle that you were in interviewing him that also spoke Spanish?
Yes, Sergeant Jeff Fink speaks Spanish.
And does Officer Fink ask him if that was on 385th Avenue?
Yes, he did.
And what did the defendant respond?
Mr. Rivera confirmed that it was.
Confirmed that he had seen Mollie Tibbetts on 385th Avenue?
Yes,
You told us that he jogged towards her and that a cell phone was used. Is that correct?
that is what he said. Mr. Rivera said that she made the attempt to use the cell phone, later telling me that she told him that she was going to call the police.
And what was the defendant's reaction to Mollie Tibbetts' threat to call the police?
Mr. Rivera said that he got angry.
Did he indicate that there was any type of physical altercation?
After he stated that he got angry, he stated that they started fighting.
Was he any more specific at this point as to what the fight was?
He said that Mollie tried to slap him and was screaming at him.
Did this make him angry?
Mr. Rivera said that this is when he became angry.
Now, what is the next thing that Cristhian Rivera told you that he remembers while he was on this road with Mollie Tibbetts?
So once Mr. Rivera told me that he got angry and he remembered them starting fighting, he stated that usually when he becomes angry or when he gets mad, he blocks out. So the next thing that he told me was that he remembered him driving and looking down into his legs and finding the earbuds that belonged to Mollie. And that is when he remembered that he had Mollie in the back of his vehicle in the trunk.
He did not tell you that he remembered putting her in the trunk.
He stated that he did not remember putting her inside the car. He did not remember how she got there, but he did remember how he took her out of the vehicle.
Okay. But he did remember her being in the trunk.
Yes.
And where were the earbuds at specifically in his car? Where did he just Mollie's or the earbuds he described? Where did he put them?
He stated that he was driving, looked down on his legs. That's how he put it. And that's when he saw them.
Did the defendant indicate to you where he took Mollie Tibbetts?
Yes, at the location where we were at,
To a cornfield?
to the cornfield.
Does the defendant describe at this point any injuries to Mollie Tibbetts' body?
He remembers that there was blood. He told me that he took her out of the car, put her on top of his shoulder, carry her inside into the cornfield, laying her down, covering her with corn leaves, and leaving right away.
Is he specific at all concerning the injuries to Mollie Tibbetts as to what part of her body those injuries were located?
At one point, I asked him, was it the head that it was bleeding? Was it the forehead? He stated he, with his hand, he motioned the neck.
So did he actually say the neck, or did he just point to his neck?
He stated and he pointed to the neck.
Did he describe for you how her body felt when he carried her?
I asked him how
That's
the
why I was
body
asking
felt
why
against
is
his
he
body when he
already
was carrying her. He told me that it felt like a person that had just fainted.
after 2 Miranda. The defense still tried to have it
Did the defendant ever tell you
withheld.
or remember for you any weapon that was used to
Suppressed.
cause the injuries to Mollie Tibbetts that would have caused her to bleed?
No, did not.
He couldn't remember it.
He could not remember.
Is it fair to say, Ms. Romero, that in your conversation with Cristhian Rivera roadside at the cornfield, that the recall by the defendant was not complete?
Yes, I was trying to get more details from him.
And it was not complete in terms of he never discussed a weapon that was used to harm Mollie Tibbetts.
That is correct.
He did not provide you turn by turn a drive that he took to the cornfield, correct?
Correct.
There may have been some other details left out. Is that right?
Yes, that's what I was understanding.
Did the defendant provide you any information concerning the condition of his clothing?
Yes, he told me that he had no shirt on because it was stained with blood.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
He had no shirt on because it was stained with blood, or
He
it
had
could
no-
be bloody
He had no shirt on at what point?
when he was carrying her inside the cornfield.
After he covers Mollie Tibbetts with corn leaves, did he leave
Yes,
right away?
he said I left right away.
You asked him again in this part of the interview concerning putting her in the car. Do you recall that?
Yes,
He doesn't remember putting Mollie Tibbetts in the vehicle, but remembers taking her out. Is that accurate?
that is accurate.
After going through this statement with the defendant, did you press him then for more details?
Yes, I did.
Because of those gaps that we just mentioned, is that right?
Yes,
Did you want to get all of the information that you could possibly get from
Yes.
the defendant?
yes,
That was your goal.
that was my goal.
Did you ever then confront him by asking him if did you ever then press him then on more details? How did you go about doing that?
Yes, so I went to ask him, Mr. Rivera, please just let me know, give me more details, how she got into the car, what happened to her, what did you do to her? His answer was, I brought you here, didn't I? So that means that I did it. I don't remember how I did it.
So he tells you that you were pressing him for more details.
Yes,
He tells you that he brought you all the way out to her.
yes,
So that means I did it, right? It was a question. Is that correct?
that is how he's put it. Yes,
And then he follows that with, I don't know how I did it. Is that correct?
that is correct.
Did you press him at one point on more details by asking him what changes?
He goes, nothing changes. I brought you out here. And then he restates what he told me earlier.
All right. And towards the end of this interaction with the defendant, you come back to asking him about being scared when Mollie Tibbetts threatened to call the police. Is that right?
Yes.
What was his reaction, or what was his answer to that particular statement?
He said that he got scared, but he got angry too.
He was angry about her threatening to call the police.
Yes.
Did you ask him after this happened, did you think about it?
Yes.
What was his what was his answer to that?
He goes, not really.
And when you asked him, when people were looking for Mollie Tibbetts, did you ask him, what were you thinking?
Yes.
What was his reaction to that?
I remember he just shrugged his shoulder and he goes, I didn't think about it.
Did he say that he felt bad?
No.
Did he say that he blocked out everything or tried to?
The part where he got angry, yes.
This interaction with Cristhian Bahena Rivera at the roadside, Ms. Romero, lasted how long in the car?
Again, I don't have exact times, but it was probably an hour or so.
Okay. And at any point in time, did you go back into the cornfield to observe the area where Mollie Tibbetts had been found?
No.
He didn't confess to actually unaliving her. He just said he forgot, or he blocked it out. So, yeah.
Ms. Romero, just to finish this up, did you drive back to the sheriff's office with the defendant?
Yes. No, not with the defendant.
Okay, but you went back.
Yes.
The man that you've just recounted these statements that he gave to you on August 20th and 21st, is he seated here in the courtroom?
Yes, he is.
Please point to him and describe what he's wearing.
He is right there, and he is wearing a light blue shirt with a gray dress pants.
Your Honor, the record should reflect that Ms. Romero has identified the defendant, Cristhian Bahena Rivera.
Record will so reflect.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Members of the jury, let's take a 10-minute recess at this time. Want to remind you of your admonition.
Yeah.
You can leave your notebooks where they
I'll go
are.
and change.
And again, we'll be back in about 10 minutes. And Ms. Romero, you may step down also, of course. HEMA and the attorneys of record are all present. Mr. Romero, Ms. Romero, I'll remind you, you're still under oath. And with that, Ms. Fries, you may cross-examine.
Ms. Romero, you said that Mr. Bahena made a statement that kind of gestured a slitting of a throat. Is that correct?
My mistake, it was not the slitting of the throat, it was just more of a sign. Like he went like this through to the neck.
All right. And so what did you understand him to mean when he did that?
I was asking him if where there was blood, either head, forehead, and I myself went head, forehead, which he said neck, and he went like this.
So my client specifically said that there was blood on her neck. Is that right?
That is what I understood from him, yes.
And from what you understood was that her neck was bleeding. Is that correct?
No, at the time he just said that there was blood in the neck, and that's how I took it.
You understand that her injuries are not consistent with that.
I was not aware of the injuries.
You don't know anything about the injuries in this case. Is that right?
I know what the information that they have given me, yes, but not any details or anything in particularly.
That would be a different area for someone else to testify to. Is that right?
That is correct.
Someone that has expertise in what her injuries were. Is that correct?
Yes.
But from what Mr. Bahena said is that there was blood specifically on her neck. Is that right?
When I asked him, I asked him again, was there blood in the head, forehead? He's pointed to his neck like this, and he said in the neck.
And when he pointed to his neck, he had his thumb and his forefinger around his neck as if someone was being strangled.
Again, he just said that. I did not think of cut, strangle, or anything like that. I just was trying to understand where he saw the blood.
You've pressed my client many times for more details. Is that right?
Yes,
You told him several times that you didn't believe that he didn't remember these details. Is that right?
I did not told him that I did not believe him. I told him that I understood if he had that condition. I even remember saying that that could be a condition when someone blacked out. But no, I do not recall saying that.
But as far as what exactly happened, whether a knife was used or some sort of an object, you just don't know. Is that right?
That is right.
And that's because my client did not give you that information. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Now, he did lead you to the body. Is that right?
Yes, he did.
And what he did is he said, this is where this happened. Is that right?
He showed me the cornfield, and he goes, this is the cornfield where I came, took her out of the trunk, carried her on my shoulder, went inside the cornfield, dropped her on the ground, covered her with leaves, and I left right away.
Now, you were very clear to him that you wanted more information. Is that right?
In the car, yes, when I was doing the interview, I wanted more details. I was trying to have him remember what happened between the time that he stated that he did not remember how she got in the car, but he remembered when he took her out of the car.
Now, he wouldn't provide you with those details. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And specifically, when he asked or when you were pressed for details, he said, I brought you here, right?
He kept restating that, yes, I brought you here, didn't I brought you here, didn't I?
And another thing that he said to you is what changes? Is that right?
Yes.
He knew at that. I mean, many hours before he was detained on an immigration hold. Isn't that right?
He was detained around 11:30 p.m. at night.
And when he was talking to you at this cornfield, that was approximately 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning. Isn't that right?
We left the office at 4:30 a.m.
And he knew once you were there that he was going to be arrested for her homicide. Isn't that right?
At that time, when the 11:30 interview with the ICE agent, at that time he was under custody.
And specifically, though, ma'am, between 5 and 6 in the morning, when you were at that cornfield, he has brought you to the body. He's led you in the cornfield. Isn't that right?
That is right.
And he knew that he was going to be placed under arrest for her homicide. Isn't that right?
What he was thinking, I'm not sure what.
He had no reason to believe that he wasn't going to be held accountable. Isn't that right?
I guess not.
And you asked him for more details,
Yes.
right? And he was simply unwilling to give them to you. Is that correct?
Again, I did not say the word unwilling. He kept stating that when he got angry, he blacks out. So I'm not sure if he was not willing to do it or he was just describing a condition that he had. Again, it's not my area.
Now, you're trained in interview techniques. Is that right?
I received, like I stated earlier, 16 hours of the CTK class.
Have you ever heard of the term false confession?
I was taught in one of the classes of the training, yes.
Explain for the jury what a false confession is.
Must
I
have jogged his memory.
sorry, but I will not be able to do that because I don't have the knowledge of what it is exactly.
Explain
bad.
what you were trained at the interview technique schools that you were at.
I do not remember going into details with the false confession. My training was direct in how to direct an interview, how to do rapport building, how to go ahead and get to know the person that you're interviewing, how to conduct the interview in manners like that.
Now, ma'am, you have some very reputable skills that I would assume, given your dual language, is that you did interviews quite a lot in your capacity as a law enforcement officer. Is that right?
It all depends what you mean quite a lot. I started my career with law enforcement, and I was doing this for 2.5 years almost at the time. So I was still brand new to all of it. And I was, yes, conducting interviews in a small town of West Liberty, which there were not a lot of interviews to be done. It all depends what a lot means to you.
It's generally known, it was
Yeah.
generally known in the community.
And this
you
trial goes for
were an
7 days.
advanced officer. Isn't that right?
That is correct, yes.
And so if there was someone that was
That's
investigating
how
a
money goes.
case involving someone that spoke Spanish,
Oh, that's
they would
on
often
that.
bring you into
Thank goodness.
assist. Isn't that right?
Yes.
And have you ever been asked to assist in another jurisdiction such as this case?
No.
All right. Now, ma'am, I want to talk to you a little bit about report building. That's something that you've learned at the
Yes.
academy?
Yes, a little bit of in the academy, but again, the report building skills that I learned were mostly at the CTK classes.
Specifically, what is rapport building?
Again, just getting to know the person that you're talking to, anything about family, history, employment, anything that we can go ahead and get out of the assessment.
And it sounds to me like you talked to my client for about 2 hours just doing general rapport building.
Again, I do not recall the exact times, but yes, the interview was long.
You did speak to him about a number of different things. Is that right?
That is right. We spoke about family. He gave me a list of uncles and aunts.
You talked to him about his employment and where he worked. Is that right?
Yes, that is right.
You also talked to him about how often he worked. Is that correct?
Yes.
And he talked to you, and ma'am, I do have your not your transcripts, but the transcripts there if you'd like to look at them. But he talked to you about how often he worked at the dairy farm. Is that right?
Yes, he did.
He told you that he worked long hours. Is that right?
7 days a week. Yes, 5 to 5 sometimes.
All right. And so he goes
Oh,
to
so that
work
gives
at 5
indication
o'clock
of
in the
that,
morning. Is that correct?
That is correct. That's what he told me.
And then he would leave work at 5 p.m. Is that right?
Yes, he said the 12-hour shift.
And he would work 7 days a week on his on week. Is that right?
Yes, he told me that there were some every other weekend or something like that he was off.
So generally, there would be 1 week that he would work every single day, 12-hour days. Is that right?
That was my understanding when I spoke to him.
And then the next week, he would have 2 days off. Is that right?
He said every other weekend, so yes, that's what I understand.
And that second week, so he'd work 5 of the 7 days. Is that right?
I did not ask what week he was on at that particular time, so I'm not sure.
Well, let me ask you a better question for you. Generally, if it was a 2-week period, he would work 12 of the 14 days. Is that right?
Yes.
And so I understand you don't know about what days were off, but he would work he would work 12 hours a day, 12 of the 14 days a week. Is that right?
And he told me he went in at 5 a.m.
Is he
to come out
stalking
at
her?
5 p.m.
You didn't have anything to dispute that. Is that right?
No.
He
I
talked
saw it
to
was
you
the corner.
about his family in the area. Is that right?
Yes.
You were able to connect to
All right,
him
I'll mute myself
that
now.
you both immigrated here to the United States. Is that right?
Yes.
You told him that you immigrated here when you were 10, right?
Yes.
And he said that he came to the United States when he was about 17.
Yes, if I recall correctly, yes.
Did he tell you the area or the township that he was from?
Yes, he did.
Where was he from?
I do not recall the name of the town, but he was from the south part of Mexico. The state, I believe it was Guerrero.
That's what I thought was the town. So it sounds like you're following this better than me. Did you ask him about his parents and if they're still alive?
Yes, I did.
Did he tell you where they were?
They said that they were both in Mexico.
So they were still in Mexico in Guerrero. Is that right?
Yes.
Did you ask him about if he had any siblings?
Yes, I did.
And did he tell you about his family?
Yes, he did.
And what family did he have other than his parents in Mexico?
He, well, in Mexico, I do not recall anymore besides the parents, but I believe he mentioned a brother or sister. But we mostly focus on the family that he had here and around the area.
All right. And my notes, and I don't think I want to make you go through the interview here, but it is that he had 2 siblings, but your understanding is he had a sibling or 2 that were still with his parents. Is that right?
That was my understanding, yes.
He also told you that he's building a house in Mexico. Is that right?
Yes, he did.
And how is it that one works in Iowa, 12 out of 14 days of a week and still is doing that in Mexico?
Again, everybody, I don't know how he is doing it. The things that I know is that that's what a lot of immigrants do. That is what my parents did. We came here for a better life and we were building a house, meaning that someone does the construction work while you send money to them.
And it's not unusual for someone that is an immigrant in this country to still be sending money home to their family. Is that right?
That is right.
And is it unusual for a family to be separated where, part of the family immigrates to the country and the other part of the family stays there?
That's not unusual.
Why would a family do that?
Because of their immigration status?
Now, with Christian, him sending money back to his family to take care of his family, is that something that's unusual?
No.
Now, the money that someone can make in the United States versus in Mexico, Is that significant?
I will say so. To be honest, I came here when I was 10, so I do not have any knowledge of how much money you can go ahead and make in Mexico.
All right. But he told you that he was working here so that he could send money back to his family. Is that right?
That is what he said.
He also talked to you about what he did on his time off, his 2 days out of those 14 days. Is that right?
Yes,
He said that he had a young daughter, a 3-year-old. Is that right?
yes.
Her name was Paulina.
I do not recall the name.
Did he tell you that he spent time with this child?
Yes, he stated that he drove down to the Cedar Rapids area where she was living with the mother, and that he used to bring her over to Brooklyn.
So his daughter would stay with him, those 2 days out of the every 14 days. Is that right?
He stated I would go and get her during the weekends that I'm off.
All right. Now, my client also talked about his family that is in the Iowa area. Is that right?
Yes,
And specifically, he told you that he chose the location that he did because he had uncles in the area. Is that right?
yes,
He told you that he had uncles in Tama County. Is that right?
yes.
I think he said he had 4 different uncles in Tama.
I do not recall the number, but yes, there were quite a few.
He also told you that he had a family in Brooklyn. Is that right?
Yes,
It sounds to me like he had some aunts that would take care of him and kind of cook food for him when he had a lunch. Is that right?
that is right. He stated that the uncle's wife was the one who prepared his food.
He also showed you a picture of his daughter. Is that right?
No, I do not recall that.
You don't recall him showing you a picture of his daughter?
No, I do not remember that part.
If I showed you a copy of your transcript, would that assist with that?
Yes.
All right. May I approach? If you could turn to, and this is 170434. If you could turn to page 10. This is yours. Now, ma'am, this was over an 11-hour. This was over an 11-hour interview. Is that right?
That is correct.
And I'm not expecting you to remember every single detail. But it does say that it does show that you asked to see a picture of his daughter. Is that right?
I'm not seeing where I asked him to show me the picture. I was asking him for the cell phone number.
Okay.
And right now, when you see my cell phone, I have in the background my own baby. And that is what I saw in his cell phone. He did not show me the picture like this. And when this is my daughter, it was just in the background of the cell phone. And I asked, is that your daughter? He said, yes.
All right, that makes sense. So because it talks, and I don't have it right in front of me, I can bring it up, but there's some sort of a statement that you say, oh, that's your daughter. Is that right?
Yes.
And then you say, oh, she's cute. Is that right?
Yes.
So you didn't ask to see a picture of his daughter. Is that right?
No, I remember I did not even recall saying, hey, show me the picture of your daughter, or him going like this. It was in the background of that cell phone.
It's just that you happened to see it when he was looking at his cell phone. Is that right?
Yes, because my pen was not working correctly, and he actually let me borrow a pen.
All right. So after the rapport building that happens, and we talked about some of the things you talked about, but you got to know him fairly significantly. Is that right?
Yes, I believe that we spent time talking.
The next thing, you did talk to him some about his status. Is that right?
Yes.
And we already talked about he came to Mexico when he was 17. Is that right?
Yes.
You talked to him about how it is that he's able to, I guess, function, in the United States without a legal status. Is that right?
Yes.
And my client didn't make any sort of statements or try to represent to you that he was legally in this country. Is that right?
No.
He was very upfront with you that he was here illegally. Is that right?
Yes.
He was brought here when he was 17 and he's just remained. Is that correct?
He told me that he had been in the United States for 7 years and 4 in Brooklyn.
One thing that you were very clear to him on the outset is that you were not here to investigate his immigration status. Is that right?
I do remember telling him a couple of times that I was not interested in his status.
And so specifically, you said you were worried about this girl's disappearance. You were not the immigration police. Is that right?
At one point, I did mention that, but not at the beginning of the interview.
Well, why don't you look at page 26 now?
Uh-oh. I don't like that sort of smarmy.
Is that right?
There's no lines there, so I think you're going to have to read the entire page.
Mr. Rivera says, well, when you apply, so you don't struggle. So I said, so you don't struggle, but oh, you have registered at work. Mr. Rivera answers, yes, at work.
I'm not asking you to read it out loud. If you could just look at it yourself,
Okay,
I'd
okay,
appreciate
sorry.
it.
So yes.
And you were very clear with him that you were not here to investigate his immigration status. Is that right?
Yes.
And he was very clear to you that he was in this country illegally. Is that correct?
He told me that he was using another name and social security number.
Specifically that he was working under the name of John Budd. Is that right?
Yes.
He talked to you about using that name. Is that right?
Yes.
He said that he has no credit cards, debit cards, or anything like that. Is that correct?
Yes.
Basically, he uses that name so that he is able to work.
Yes.
And then he cashes the check and operates with cash. Is that correct?
Yes, that's what he told me.
Now, the statement about that you had about immigration, that you were not here to arrest him for immigration, you genuinely believed that at that time. Is that right?
Yes.
Now, there were people that were not in the interview room that were making the big picture decisions on the case. Is that right?
Yes.
How many other people were there working on that case from the FBI, DCI, any sort of law enforcement agency?
I'm not able to tell you that. I don't know.
From what you saw, were there more than 10 people?
No, that I remember. I mean, I do remember like 4 or 5 of them.
Well, you are aware that when my client was brought into custody, that his vehicle was also being processed. Is that right?
At the beginning of the interview, I was not aware of that.
You were made aware of that at a certain time. Is that right?
That is right.
And specifically, you were told at that point in time that there had been hair that was found in Mr. Rivera's vehicle. Isn't that right?
Later on in the interview, yes.
And explain to me, who told you that there was hair that was found in the vehicle?
Do not recall who told me that. I was going outside for breaks. I was gathering information and I was going back then to conduct the interview.
Well, at that time, you were made aware that my client's vehicle was being searched and was being processed by the Division of Criminal Investigation. Is that right?
Again, I'm not sure who was investigating the vehicle. I was aware that the vehicle was being investigated, but not sure who it was.
And I'm not asking you when, but at some point in time during that night, you became aware that simultaneously, as my client's being interviewed, his vehicle is also being processed. Is that right?
That is right, yes.
And one of the things that you were told was that there was hair that was found in that vehicle. Is that correct?
Yes.
And it was believed that that hair may be from Mollie Tibbetts. Isn't that right?
I do not recall telling him that it was from Mollie Tibbetts. I believe I told him that there was hair found, but the information that I got from the outside, but I did not mention Mollie Tibbetts.
You went in and you confronted my client saying that there was hair found in the vehicle. Is that right?
I informed Mr. Rivera, they were telling me that there was hair found in the vehicle.
And you essentially were saying, hey, explain this. Is that right?
Yes, which he stated that it was hair from his daughter.
You later found out that the statement or what you were told was not true. Is that right?
Later on, again, I do not recall that.
All right. So
I did not, people were not there telling me, yes, this is true, this is not true. I was given the information, going in there, conducting the interview.
Right. So it would be for this jury to listen to the evidence and to find out if hair was actually found in the vehicle. Is that right?
That is someone else's part to explain.
But one of the things that you confronted him with is that there was hair in his vehicle. Is that right?
I informed Mr. Rivera that there was hair.
And as far as the immigration, what you told him, it turned out to be a lie. Is that right?
No, it wasn't a lie. I was not there for immigration status. I was not there to ask him about his status at all. I was there again to conduct an interview, and that's what I did.
One of the tactics you were taught to use is to present a suspect with information that ties them to the crime. Isn't that right?
Well, I think
Yes.
we found out
And
dipshit
sometimes
got the award for
investigators
this
use false
car.
information to present to the suspect. Isn't that right?
Yes.
Someone find out her name.
And the information that you told him that you were not worried about his immigration status, that changed at 11:30 p.m. Isn't that right?
That did not change because I was not interested in his immigration status.
Well, at about 11:30 p.m., he was placed in custody
Yeah, so that's
for
2 votes.
immigration.
That
Is that right?
both agents, correct.
Okay, so a break was taken in the interview, and he was put in custody for being illegally in the United States. Is that right?
That's what I understood at 11:30. Yes.
My client had just gotten off of work or was finishing the day at work when he was brought in. Isn't that right?
I'm not sure. I was not given that information.
Well, that's what he told you.
He told me that he was at work when they went to talk to him.
And the interview started at about 5 o'clock p.m.
Approximately 17:06,
and 17:06 would be 5:06 p.m.
5:06 p.m.
So that would be approximately the end of his day at the dairy farm. Is that right?
With the information that he gave me, yes.
And that interview continued through the night. Isn't that right?
Yes.
So he was given breaks, but he was essentially in a small room at the sheriff's office from 5 p.m. at night until 4:30 the next morning. Is that right?
Yes, that was an 11-hour interview with approximately 8 to 9 breaks that he was given. He was given food. He was given breaks to use the restroom. He was given number of breaks to just be by himself. Yes.
His family came and asked to talk to him. Isn't that right?
I'm not sure what the family asked. I was told that there was family out in the lobby, and I went outside to talk to them.
So you talked to his family. Were you able to get their names?
No, I was not.
There were 2 people there. Is that right?
I recall seeing 3 of them there.
When you talked to them, you suggested that they go home.
I told them that I wasn't aware of how long this was going to go ahead and go for, that it was late, that if they wanted to go home, that they could.
Did you ever offer them a chance to speak with my client?
No, I did not.
Did you ever tell my client that his family was there to speak with him?
Not to speak to him. I made Mr. Rivera aware that he had family out in the lobby.
You made him aware that he had family out in the lobby.
Yes.
If my client says that you never made him aware that he had family out in the lobby, you disagree with that?
It was recorded, so it will go ahead and be in the transcripts.
All right, so you believe that it's in these transcripts somewhere?
Somewhere, yes.
All right. Did you offer him a chance to go speak with his family?
No.
You just told him that they were there.
At the beginning of the interview, I told him he had his cell phone with him. I told him he was free to go whenever he wanted to. He continued to stay. He continued to talk to me.
At some point in the interview, you talked to my client several times about helping himself. You recall that?
The word help, it's translated in a different concept in Spanish. So I'm not sure what you are referring to when I said help.
And so you believe that the transcript is wrong, is what you're saying, or?
I'm not saying that it's wrong, but in my opinion, there are parts that me being a fluent Spanish speaker, I will say that they're not translated the correct way, but that is just my opinion.
Aye, Captain Birdseye. Tomato, tomato, lady.
Ma'am, these transcripts, first of all, they've been authored by the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Is that right?
Yeah, that's what I was told, yes.
So that's their translation. Is that right?
That's what I was told, yes.
And what you're saying is that their translation is not what you believe the translation is?
In my opinion, again,
Yes,
there are parts
she would have
that
said I
I
first.
believe were not translated the correct way, right? And the reason I'm saying this is
She would
because
have
of
let
the
me
video and reading what they translated.
Would it be fair to say that there's different dialects of Spanish?
Yes.
Still waiting for 8.5.
Explain that to the jury.
There are different words that you can go ahead and use to describe something. Like there are parts of Mexico that when you say cookie, it could, for others, it might be like slapping someone in the face. So it's different words that describe different things. It's just hard to explain.
So,
And so, My client, he's
Unanimous.
from Guerrero, Mexico. Is that right?
Guerrero, Mexico, yes.
You say it much better than me. Where are you from in Mexico?
I'm from the north side. I'm Durango.
What is, as far as dialects, can you give this jury any information on different dialects?
Not really, but I do understand that there's different forms that we talk. Just like anywhere in the United States, if you are from the north, if you're from the south, you can go ahead and have different
Yeah.
accents, different dialects, and that is the same way that it's happened in Mexico.
And for example, using the term hey, or hello, are there different ways to say that depending on where you are from?
Yes. It would be like saying soda or pop. I mean, in the United States, it's just different.
All right, so let's go to page 11 first, and I'll give you a little bit of direction.
What number of the transcript?
It is 2027-35.
Yeah.
It's about towards the middle, and I don't want you to read it to me, but let me know when you've had a chance to read the phrase. I think
Yeah.
you use help 2 different times.
I don't think he was grieving that hard, to be honest. He was shaking politics.
Yes.
And what you say is, you can help me understand so you can help yourself.
Yes.
And at that point, you're, I guess, suggesting that you are able to help my client. Isn't that right?
No, that's not the way that I see it. When I said help me understand in Spanish, it would be ayúdame a comprender. Help me understand what you're trying to say. It's like talking to a kid in school. Help me, guide me to what you are saying. So that is the meaning of the word help in there.
And you use that phrase multiple different times. You say, let's help each other out. We're here to help each other out. You agree with me on that. Is that right?
That is correct.
Another thing you say, and I mean, I can go through the different transcript places, but you're telling me that we're here to help you out. That's another phrase that you used several times, ma'am. You recall that?
Yes.
And
What's wrong with that?
at that point, you say, we're here to help you out.
Yes.
Aren't you telling my client that you're there to help him?
Basically, what I'm saying what I mean with that is I am here to hear you out, to see what you have to say.
You say that you're telling him that, but that's not what you said. Is that right?
Again,
What's the
it's
difference?
just difficult to explain in Spanish because when you say it in Spanish is, I'm going to go ahead and talk Spanish, but it's just ayúdame a entenderte, ayúdame a comprender. So, okay, yes, but I'm going to go ahead and translate what I said. So help me understand, help me. Again, I was trying to get the information that he needed to tell me.
Okay, so it'd be fair to say that these transcripts, you don't agree with everything that is said in here. Is that right?
Again, it's not that I don't agree, it's just that in my opinion, because I believe, again, different dialect, different words being used, it's just not the way that I will translate it myself.
Would you agree with me that if you were to translate it yourself, it would probably be about 10% inaccurate?
I will not say that, but I will be able to understand it better, yes.
All right, you think that you would be able to explain it better, is that right?
That is right.
And someone, and again, it looks like it's transcribed by a Kathy Yanez, but someone has a disagreement with you on how this translation would read. Is that right?
What do you mean by that?
The person taking down this information takes it down differently than you would. Is that right?
Yes,
And that may be different from what my client would. Is that right?
it could be.
Another thing is that he's also being interrogated, and you'd agree with me that this was an interrogation, correct?
I do not agree with you on that.
Okay, well, he was a suspect here. Is that right?
I did not make him aware that he was a suspect. I did not have anything to hold him as a suspect at the time of the interview.
How many times have you interviewed a witness for 11 plus hours, ma'am?
That was the first time, yes.
All right. And in this case, he was not only interviewed for 11 plus hours, he was interviewed right after he finished a long day at work. Is that right?
Yes, that was the understanding.
And he's not somebody like you and me that goes and sits at a desk all day, correct?
With the job description that he gave me, he was not.
He's cleaning pens. Is that right?
Yes,
He's scooping poop.
yes.
He's on his feet or some other machinery all day. Is that right?
Did not ask him that.
All right.
I'm guessing.
This man, he works a tough job for 12 hours a day, 12 out of the 14 days a week. Isn't that right?
That is what he told me, yes.
And then he's brought in and he is questioned from you on and off for 11 plus hours. Isn't that right?
The interview went for 11 hours, yes.
And it was not until the very end, the last couple of hours, that he was willing to give you really any information. Is that right?
That's not the way that I took it.
Okay. He agreed that he saw her out running. Is that right?
Yes.
But other than that, he did not give you any significant information until the last couple of hours.
He did give me information.
Okay. What information did he give you?
It will be recorded in the transcripts.
Okay. That's fair. This man fell asleep multiple different times during this interview. Is that right?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Well, he was given breaks. Is that right?
Yes.
And during those breaks, he fell asleep multiple different times.
I was not aware of that.
So you don't believe that my client fell asleep during this interview?
I did not see him fall asleep during the interview.
And you disagree, noticing that he was tired?
I do not disagree with you. At the end of the interview, he looked tired, I looked tired, everyone was tired.
Well, let's turn first to $2027.35. And if you could go to page 15. Okay. And I'm sorry, go to page 21. If you could read, it's about 10 lines in. Do you recall, ma'am, and just to be clear, this transcript at 2027.35, that deals with the military timestamp, is that right?
Yes.
So that would have been at 8:35 at night that night, is that correct?
Yes.
So about 3 hours into the interview.
Okay.
And at that point in time, it appears that you're walking back into the room, is that correct?
Yes.
And what is it that you acknowledge to my client?
Is that you fell asleep?
And so do you recall walking back into the room and seeing that he was asleep?
No, I do not recall that. I asked him because I took a little bit to come back.
What does he respond back to you?
He did not admit or anything. He just goes, mm-hmm.
In just a little bit.
Yes.
So you're telling this jury that you agree that you said that, is that right?
Yes.
Or are you saying that it's an inaccurate translation?
No, I'm telling you that I do remember telling him that because I took a long time to come back from that break. And what I'm telling the jury right now is that at the time that I spent with Mr.
She's
Rivera,
attacking the
all
credibility.
that time Mr. Rivera did not put his head down, did not act as if he was sleeping. When we were in the conversation, he was very engaged. He was answering the questions that I was making, and at no point I saw him sleeping.
All right, let's go to page 22 now, ma'am. It's the same transcript.
And let's take on coercion.
And if you could read the last portion. And just let me know when have you had a chance to look at it, or do you
Yes.
need more time? And just to kind of, I guess, bring you to where you were in the conversation, he's talking to you about a date that he was supposed to have with a woman. Is that right?
Yes.
And he did talk to you about that he was supposed to have a date with a woman on July 19th. Is that right?
That is correct.
And you talked about it with him a little bit, that he had even bought the woman flowers. Is that right?
Yes.
He had arranged through his cousin to get flowers because he's working normally during the day. Is that right?
Yes.
He had said that he had cleaned his car so that it was ready for this date. Is that right?
Yes.
He said that he was going to take this woman to Des Moines to go out to eat. Is that right?
Yes.
He said that they had bet on a soccer game or something. Is that right?
That is right.
And he said that he lost, so he was buying. Is that right?
Yes.
And he told you that that date was supposed to be on July 19th of 2018. Is that right?
That is correct.
And what he told you is that that date never happened because the
Tornado.
Yes, the one.
I'm sorry. Both were speaking at the same time. What was the answer?
What was the answer you said?
Because of the tornado, he was not able to visit
This woman, she lived in Marshalltown, is that correct?
Yes,
And what happened to be is that this tornado in Marshalltown hit the day after Mollie Tibbetts went on this run. Is that right?
I do not recall.
Okay. But he said he was planning to take her on the date and this tornado hit at the same time. Is that right?
Yes,
So going back to this interview, you're talking about this different date and who bought the flowers and everything. Is that right?
yes,
And at that point in time, you excused yourself so that he could eat. Is that right?
yes.
And what is it that he says?
He goes, I am going to sleep here, question mark. So I can start making myself comfortable, right? That was a joking matter. I took it because he chuckled. And I said, no, don't get too comfortable.
All right.
I'll be right back.
And keep moving down the transcript, ma'am.
I told him, no.
You don't need to keep reading it, but go ahead and read it to yourself.
Okay. So where exactly do you want me to go from here?
If you could go to 24, page 24. And what's shown is that you go back into the room. Is that right?
Yes,
So you gave him a break. Is that correct?
yes,
And at that point in time, you asked him how he was doing. Is that right?
yes.
And my client told you that he was sleepy. Is that correct?
Well, I did not ask him. It was Sergeant Jeff that made the question, how are you doing? And he responded, sleeping.
So at that portion of the interview, my client acknowledged that he was tired. Is that correct?
Yes,
If you could go to 220904, that's the next transcript. And so that would be about 10 o'clock at night. And I'm sorry, go to the next transcript. It'd be 2350. So that would be at 11:50 at night. And if you could go to page 2. And it's at the top of the page. So this would be at about 11:50 at night. Is that correct?
again, I do not remember the exact times.
Well, the transcript would have been, it's labeled that it's 23:50:34, correct?
Yes,
So that would correspond with about 11:50, right?
Right.
And at the beginning of that transcript, you ask my client if he's sleepy. Is that right?
yes, I said, are you sleeping, Christian?
And he says a bit.
Yes, his response was a bit.
Now I'd ask you to go to page 32. In the top of the page.
Yes.
At that point in time, you also ask my client, you say, you are sleepy, right?
Yes,
And he says yes.
and again, shackles.
Now, ma'am, I guess I can show portions of the video if need be that my client's sleeping, but I want to make clear. So are you saying that he was never sleeping when you were in the room? Or are you saying that he was never sleeping?
I'm saying that he was never sleeping when I was in the room. He did not make any indicators. Whenever I make the question, as you can see, he chuckles, he jokes around with it, and again, engages in the conversation with me.
So what you're telling this jury is that he was joking around about being sleepy.
That's how I took it, not particularly joking around, but when you ask me a question, I answer it and I chuckle or laugh. To my interpretation, that will be that I'm not being serious.
So you don't believe that he's sleeping?
Again, he was not sleeping when I was making contact with him.
Ms. Rees, and Mr. Brown, go ahead to approach, please.
almost dead. Come on. Come on. Say hello. Say hello. Ooh, good boy. Good boy. This one, you? Yeah, you did.
The jury, that completes our service for today. I want to remind you of your admonition before I send you on the way. Make sure you're not discussing the case with anyone. Make sure you're not doing any type of independent research, and make sure you're not having any media exposure to.
Right then. Well, let's see. Well, there is one more, I think, 45-minute video, which we'll start off doing tomorrow before we head into day 3. All right. My apologies for not finishing it, but yeah, I need to go. No, nice. All right. Thank you very much for joining me again, and for your support. And you make sure you stay safe, stay warm, stay happy, healthy. And as I say, if you can't be good, be better. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Hey there, thanks for stopping in. We hope you will join us again. We all look forward to next time. We get to talk about true crime. Clues. Justice served in an honest fight. True crime tales till the verdict's right. Solving more than just trivial quests, where sentences rule and the defense rests. Our true crime family is great. All types of topics we debate. Smash that like and ring that bell. Hit subscribe, you might as well.